A great pleasure to welcome back to What's Next, Frikkie van Loggerenberg, who is Head of Investment Strategy and the Chief Executive Officer of IFSA. Frikkie, it's really good to see you again. How are you doing?
Aki, spectacular. Thanks for chatting to me again. We had nice rain, so it's panning out to be a beautiful day.
No, it certainly is. So, Frikkie, what is the most common question that your network of independent IFAs gets when working with clients? I'm sure you get lots of questions, but I'm sure there must be one that comes up over and over again.
If I would think about it, there's not just one specific, but there's a couple, like a top three I can talk, and it's more like a grouping or an understanding in a certain category than it is a specific pertinent question on one point. One is obviously on investment management strategy, the how, what, where's, the rate of returns, those types of things. That is a primary focus. But the last month, I would say 6 weeks, we've had an immense question around wills and estates, about the planning, about drafting of wills, those types of things. That we need to address. And one of the things that came out was people asking, what is the cost when you're winding up an estate? Which is a good question, but I think there needs to be a two-parter in that, where we see that capital gains tax that was introduced, I would say about almost a little bit more than 20 years ago, when I was just pepper, not salt and pepper. Was when it was introduced, there wasn't a lot of capital gain early on. So you had your base costs previously, like in the early 2000s, whatever the case is. And it's the last 5 to 10 years when there is a sudden impact and somebody dies that you actually see the full effect of what capital gains actually happen. So the question around costs and then of course the taxes is a major part that we emphasize on.
Yeah, you see, you make such a good point. And, when you ask people and you tell people what it's cost you to die, and your will and the estate, etc., nobody can give you a definitive amount, So it's great that you're getting people asking you these questions, because they're very, very important questions. Now, you mentioned questions around wills and estate planning. Why these two topics specifically?
Okay, I think they have to go hand in hand. For me, the estate plan, or the will and estate plan, forms the basis of all fundamental financial planning or investment management. It doesn't help that you put together this beautiful investment strategy for the next 15 or 20 years, but you don't bring it back to what happens today when you die. What does that look like? So it's very important that you take both into account. And I think it's one of the things that you basically guaranteed that you are going to pass away at some time, and it forces you to take a look at what the feasibility of your will is, and all the plans and ideas that you had going around your legacy. Is it actually practically possible to make that work in your estate? So you can't just do the estate plan without bringing it back to this physical document, the will itself, or just draft the will. You have to take care of both sides.
Yeah, and Frikkie, I'm glad you mentioned legacy, because that's what people are going to remember you, and that your legacy is very, very important. So make sure that when you do die, that everything is ready and in place. And as you say, as crude as it sounds, we don't want to think about death, but it's a reality, and it will happen at some point. What are some of the most common mistakes that people make when they're trying to use AI, for example, or DIY solutions for these needs? Now, I'll be honest, I've tried it, and it doesn't work. You need that practical experience from somebody like yourself that's going to say, do this, do that, do that. I don't think that AI and those DIY solutions are quite there yet.
Look, it's the same thing that if you got a mild cold, sure, go to the chemist, or you can Google whatever. That's not a problem. But if you've got brain surgery, heart surgery, it's your physical life and death type of situation. You want a professional taking a look at you. If there's operations to be done, it needs to be a physician, somebody that's a professional. We actually had a very interesting take it taking a look at AI, asking one of the platforms a certain question around an estate, putting in some information, and how the tax calculations vary on one of those two things. And the answers were totally different out of a net effect. But if you didn't have that basic background, you wouldn't have picked it up. It was so subtle, but it had a major effect. And the DIY estates or wills just make it's the mistakes that people make sometimes is not, and it's the practical thing around the legal document of not having original will dated, and making sure that you've got it's signed by two witnesses that are not basically bequeathed in your estate. Very important point there. And the other point is, again, the practicality of what must happen to your assets. Is it specifically stated in your will? Must it be transferred as a property, or must it be sold? Must it be liquidated, form part of your residue? Whatever the case is, it's very important to get that professional on board, and it will give you a peace of mind to make sure, or to be happy that you know that there's somebody professional looking after it, not just now, but you can be calm to say people that you can trust are taking care of your people that or your loved ones that are left behind.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So when you look at IFSA and the independent network of financial advisors, you guys, what makes your approach so different to anywhere else that you will go?
So I think when it comes, there's two distinct points that I think that we can touch on. I can go on and on because I love our business, but we only have a little bit of time, and I don't want to bore you with my stuff. But one of the important things that's our network that we contract with our network of independent advisors is we don't sell product, in the sense that if somebody phones us and need help, there's a specific product that is predestined. We need to sell a specific product. It doesn't work like that. We start with the planning process, add value in that specific process, and then when the need arises, then you get a product that matches that specific. So it's very important that you add value before that specific. And one of the major factors that people can take a look at us, and a lot of the newer, younger generation planners or advisors do everything online. And there's nothing wrong with that, 100%. But we prefer, if you step into contracts, if you meet somebody, you give them financial advice, you put together an investment strategy, you want to look them in the eye and actually have a in-depth conversation. You want to actually build a relationship with that person. And once again, that comes back to our philosophy, where we want to make sure that you are certain, and you've got that peace of mind that the people that you are dealing with, you've got a relationship with them, and you can make 100% sure that your legacy is protected after you're gone. There won't be complications, or if there is complications, there is people willing to go to bat for you. So that is the major change, or the major two shifts that I would say.
Yeah, you see, I'm the kind of guy that likes to do things face to face, especially when you're doing something like this. It's an important thing, and there's always questions, and sometimes you don't often get a chance to ask those over an electronic platform where you can't. But, face to face, is, I like that human touch, especially when you're doing something like this. I get the fact that there is a time where you're going to need to do things electronically, and that's fine. But this is a very, very important thing. How does one book a session with you guys, and what does it cost?
So we provide that service out of doing an estate plan. It's free. There's no specific charge to that. We travel all around the world. Not the world. We've got some clients around the world, but more around the country. And make sure that we add value before we start looking at that specific point. So anybody can go to our website, ifsainvest.co.za, and book a session, or just SMS the word contact to 48422, and we've got a distribution team ready to act on that specifically. But there's not an initial cost to do the work. We must first add value, and then when we take care of your investments, we manage that. Then obviously there's a fee negotiator on that as per normal. as regulated in that environment.
Okay. Now, Frikkie, before I let you go, does it matter how big an estate is? Is there like a minimum value of assets that's required for estate planning? I mean, how complex, how big, is there a minimum value that one should look at when you're planning your estate?
Look, I think there's practicality that a smaller estates you can under 250,000 total value is treated a little bit different. But the fact of the matter is, even if it's just a basic analysis, make sure that you do that basic analysis. Make sure that the document that you draw up is legally binding and it ticks all the boxes and it speaks to what the basic analysis says. So, in my view, it doesn't matter if you've got a very, very small estate, or you perceive that you've got a small estate, or perceive that it's a very uncomplicated type of estate. There's always work to be done, and make sure that you do it with professionals, and make sure that you can. So I wouldn't say that there's a minimum that you don't need to give it attention. It needs to get attention.
Yes, no, absolutely. And tell me, Frikkie, you guys at IFSA, are you involved in winding up an estate? So let's say I've come to you, we've signed everything, I've got a copy of my will, my family members have, they know who to contact, etc., etc. Are you guys involved in, taking over after somebody passes away and just managing that process? Because that's where it also gets a bit complicated.
Correct. And that's where the peace of mind comes in again. To say that if we draft the will and we do the work, we get involved 100%. We get stuck in. We've got contracted parties, people that have worked for the master of the court for a while, and then are in private practice that we actually contracted with that do a lot of this work for us. But that's the most important part. Again, is even if you say that. You name your son or your daughter as the executive of the estate. It doesn't matter if it's one of them, that's fine, or you nominate us specifically. You want to make sure that the person that you nominate will go to bat for you and make sure that they invested and they take responsibility. And that is one of those functions that we do. We make sure that our clients are taken care of on that specific front.
Fantastic. Frikkie van Loggerenberg, it's always good to chat to you, my friend, Head of Investment Strategy and the Chief Executive Officer of IFSA. Frikkie, thank you for your time.
Aki, thank you so much. You have a wonderful one. It's always like it to chat.